perfection. Human perfection. Human perfection.
Good evening and welcome to QTV. I'm Michael James.
I'm Sharon Mulheron.
I'm Matthew Bowe and this is Balloonicorn.
QTV is Queensland's only GLBTIQ television program, and yes, that is a large rainbow unicorn.
It doesn't look rainbow.
No, he's a little bit pink.
Oh, look, joining us tonight on the couch, we're going to have Stephen Page from Harrington Family Lawyers coming in to give us some legal advice and talk to us about current LGBTI issues. And
as always, we'll be also filling you in about all of the upcoming events in Brisbane that you won't want to miss.
But first, exciting news from all over the world. Now, Jason Collins, a veteran NBA star, announced this Monday that he was gay, breaking one of the final frontiers in US sports and society. He is now the first active American professional team sports player to publicly reveal his homosexuality. Many celebrities reached out to Twitter to offer their support. Ellen DeGeneres tweeted, "NBA center Jason Collins is the first out player on a US Major League team. I'm overwhelmed by your bravery, Jason, and sending so much love." In the Sports Illustrated first-person account, Collins said, "I want to do the right thing and not hide anymore. I want to march for tolerance, acceptance, and understanding. I want to take a stand and say, me too."
Speaking of celebrities, in a recent interview, The Voice's Latin superstar and human rights activist, Ricky Martin, urged the Australian government to follow the leads of New Zealand and the French parliaments and legalise same-sex marriage. The 41-year-old father of twin sons, who declared himself as a fortunate homosexual man in 2010, said the marriage equality was not about faith, it's not about religion, it's about human rights. It's about me having the opportunity to look at my sons in the eye and say, this is my husband and this is our family. It's about self-esteem and it's about dignity and it's about respect.
Love it. Love it.
It's so nice that we're getting all these people like Jason who are coming out of the closet, because it's people who do that make it easier for others, and it's really hard when so many people feel like they can't come out. And every little person, no matter how difficult it is, makes such a big difference and helps break that stigma, especially if they're professional and they're good at what they do.
Yeah, it puts it in the mainstream. It normalises it and makes it more acceptable, more digestible for the general public to really be able to empathise with and to understand that it can be anybody. There are gay people everywhere.
And I think that it's really good as well when we've got our straight allies who are also saying, you know, this is normal, this is something that we're accepting of, and we've all got families, and why can't Ricky Martin have his family if I can have my family? I think that's really good too.
Yeah, absolutely. There was some big name straight allies that were coming out in support of the NBA player as well. So it wasn't just the gay community that was getting behind them.
It's excellent. Unfortunately, hate seems to chase after love. In response to legalisation of marriage equality last week, France saw homophobic backlash on social media platforms, with hashtags like the English equivalent of "death to gays" trending on Twitter. According to Twitter's trending topics page, "death to gays" and "we must kill all gays" were tweeted by many homophobic tweeters to convey anti-gay sentiment. Unfortunately, homophobia is not only present online, but also out on the streets, as France has seen an increase in anti-gay attacks throughout the past few weeks.
I'd love to know what's French for homophobic git. It's disgusting.
What amazes me is that, you know, we get equality and then those who have had it forever start doing things that they would never tolerate from the LGBTI community if we were to go out and be heterophobic.
The problem is that I think on the internet that there are these trolls who are lying in wait to talk about anything. You can say whatever you feel like. If you have a platform or a topic's trending, these people will jump on the bandwagon and say whatever they can to inflame the situation and upset people. So I'd like to really believe that perhaps they weren't necessarily people who were against us or were basically thinking that. Perhaps they were just people trying to set fires and inflame the situation, but that may not be the case.
Definitely don't feed the trolls. Now, speaking of trolls, here's an old face that's come back from the past to apologise. John Paulk, the former poster boy of the Christian ExGay movement and the co-author of Love One Out, How God's Love Helped Two People Leave Homosexuality and Find Each Other, issued a formal apology earlier this week for his past actions. He stated, "For the better part of 10 years, I was an advocate and spokesman for what's known as the ExGay movement, where we declared that sexual orientation could be changed through a close-knit relationship with God, intensive therapy, and strong determination. At the time, I truly believed that it would happen, and while many things in my life did change as a Christian, my sexual orientation did not." Paulk now runs a catering company in Portland, Oregon. He added that he no longer supports nor promotes the movement, saying, "Please allow me to be clear. I do not believe that reparative therapy changes sexual orientation. In fact, it does great harm to many people."
It takes a lot of guts to admit you were wrong, and he'll get attacked for that. So that's a pretty daunting thing to come out and say. But it's one of those things that you can shove something back inside you. You can try to change it, and if it's not something you can change, it's going to emerge and keep rearing its head. But for those people who find happiness, that's great. But we'd hope we live in a society where God, in whatever form, does accept people the way they are and supports them.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, you were so right in being able to come forward. He spent 10 years saying that he was so much in support of this, and to be able to actually back down and go, you know what, like, I was wrong. That's big. And I suppose it's a really long journey of self-discovery for him, that he's actually been able to accept who he is. And I think us being able to accept ourselves is one of the biggest challenges that we ever face in life.
Yeah, it's a worldwide thing, isn't it? With more international news, in Iran, an unprecedented punishment where a convicted criminal was paraded in women's clothing in the streets to humiliate him took place earlier this month. In response to this sentence, a local feminist organisation held a protest where 100 women paraded to campaign gender equality. A movement, Kurd Men for Equality, launched on Facebook where men began to post photos of themselves in women's clothing, with the tagline, "Being a woman is not a way for humiliation or punishment. No apology has been announced by the authorities in Iran."
That's great. I love it.
And that could happen here, couldn't it? It's if men got in dresses and things. It's like that song by Madonna. What is it? What it feels like for a girl. It shouldn't be. Being a woman is not something to be ashamed or humiliated by. It's perfectly valid and empowering. So
yeah, absolutely, and that's such a great statement to be making. Is that, you're not degrading these men by having them dress like women. Like they can do it. There's actually a fun run that happens in Queensland or Brisbane that I heard of, where they actually do men dressing in red heels and red dresses, and they actually do a full-on run through the city to raise money and awareness for some sort of health issues. So yeah, I think it's fantastic. And that is all of the news for this week. But if you have any stories or issues that you would like to see us covered, please make sure you come and leave us a message on our Facebook page, or you can tweet us to it. That can be a local issue, international issue, whatever you'd like to see. You can also email steve.whiteley@31.com.au. Now we'll be back after these very short breaks with more QTV. Welcome back to QTV. Now we're very lucky tonight to be joined on the couch by Stephen Page. Stephen joins us from Harrington Family Law, and he has a 21-year history working with the GLBTIQ community in Brisbane. Thank you very much for joining us, Stephen.
Thank you.
Now, Stephen is going to tell us a little bit about your expertise on GLBTIQ legal issues in a variety of areas tonight. I believe Matt and Sharon have got some questions to start you off.
Well, let's start with the questions.
Well, what's your legal opinion on the proposed referendum on same-sex marriage?
Oh, look, I don't think it's going to work. And the reason for that is the referendum's non-binding. There's no point in going ahead with the referendum unless you've got the support of both major parties. If you've got the support of both major parties, you'll be able to get legislation through both houses. And the reality is we don't have the support.
So by non-binding, you mean if it goes through and everybody votes yes, it doesn't mean that they will actually go and pass
It's
it
not a
anyway?
law. It's not a law. So, you know, we want laws to be in place. We want to amend the Marriage Act so that everyone is treated equally. And if you amend the Marriage Act, that's an act of Parliament. And that means you get the support of the government and of the opposition, or at least enough of them if there's a conscience vote, if Tony Abbott allows coalition members to have a conscience vote to then get through both houses.
Okay, so in the eyes of the law, when is a relationship a relationship?
Well, that's such an open question, but look, if you're talking about a de facto relationship, it's when people are genuinely living together as a couple.
Okay.
And a judge 20 odd years ago in New South Wales had this shopping list of criteria saying if you do this, this, this and this, therefore you're in a relationship. And since then, that shopping list has made its way into pieces of legislation, including the Family Law Act. But the reality is every relationship is different, and you've got to look at each relationship on its own terms as to whether the two people are a couple.
Okay. On that, we wanted to ask, what is the difference between our state government's relationship register and a standard same-sex relationship where they're living together?
Well, a relationship register is where it's a public document in which you're actually recognised as being in a relationship. One of the effects of it is, for example, under the Family Law Act, if you split up, a court doesn't have to determine whether or not you're living in a de facto relationship at the time. The Family Law Act is quite clear and says, well, if you've got a registered relationship, then that's sufficient to say you've got a relationship. So you don't have this fight at court about were we or weren't we in a relationship and spend $50,000 or $100,000 arguing at that point. And some people do that. They argue about whether or not they were in a relationship in the first place. When you're married, it's easy because there's the marriage certificate. Okay, well, we're in a relationship. That's the end of it. But whether or not you're in a de facto relationship, or there's been one case recently from Brisbane, which was what was the couple? It was a heterosexual couple. Were they in a de facto relationship, or was she merely a mistress? And the court found she was merely a mistress, and they weren't living in a de facto relationship. He'd been married all the way through.
Wow, that's really interesting.
Exciting, folks.
So how do you separate assets when there's a separation? I mean, how would that one have panned out?
Well, it didn't. They didn't separate because the court said we're not going to cover it. There's always relief available under the common law if there was a common intention of the parties to own property together. But of course, if you're saying in that circumstance, well, you're only my mistress, I provided for you, but we never had any common intention to own any property together, go away. That's where it ends up. And so to have a relationship recognised by the relationship register means that there's one less fight that a couple might be having about whether or not they're in a relationship. And some of these fights can be really poisonous. There was a fight some years ago between two women as to whether or not they were in a lesbian relationship, and it was significant because one of the women was saying, well, I'm the co-mother of this child, and the other woman saying, well, I'm married now and I've got a child by my husband as well, and we're a normal relationship, and you and I weren't in a relationship at all. We went to the fertility clinic to say we're in a relationship because I lied. I lied because I wanted a child, and that woman was believed by the judge, a woman I might add.
That's very, very interesting. I suppose it brings us on to another point. Now, there's a lot of different legalities around parenting for same-sex couples. So could you, I suppose, give us a brief rundown on what are the possibilities and legalities around adoption and fostering and surrogacy for same-sex couples in Queensland? Okay,
well, let's keep it simple. If you have sex the old-fashioned way between a man and a woman, he's the father and she's the mother. But if you then start using IVF or ART, assisted reproductive technology, then the law presumes certain things as to who is the parent. It's normally based on who's given birth. So that if a woman has implanted into her an embryo from someone else, it's a donor embryo, she's going to be the mother no matter who's genetically is the child of. And if she's married, then the man is always presumed to be the father of the child. If she's not married and it's donor sperm, then the donor isn't the father of the child as a matter of law. And that becomes really complicated. If you have as part of the lesbian baby boom, you have the known donor, there might be an agreement which isn't legally binding that he has nothing to do with the child, but then the child is born and he says, oh, well actually, looks like me. That's my mother's nose. And then things can get really, really messy.
So that's legally accessible at the moment. So
yeah, but it can be an absolute mess.
Okay, so they can access surrogacy. Now, adoption. Adoption.
Well, I was going to say with surrogacy, the surrogate, when she gives birth, she's the legal mother of the child, even if she has no genetic relationship to the child. And it's then necessary to get a parentage order from the Children's Court to say that the intended parents, the ones who always wanted the child, are desperate to have the child, that they're the parents of the child. And the Attorney General Jared Blay was talking about changing the law so that singles and same-sex couples and those in heterosexual relationships of under 2 years couldn't access surrogacy, but thankfully that hasn't come to pass, and hopefully that won't come to pass.
Can I just quickly ask you, how does it affect, how would all this change very quickly if equality came in? Does it make it a lot more simpler?
Well, I think equality is largely there at the moment. Much of the inequality that was in the law that at a state level was removed by the Beattie government in 2003, and pretty well all the inequality, or most of the inequality that was in the law at the federal level was removed by Kevin Rudd. There's only some small segments of inequality that exist, and they relate to marriage, changing your sex, for example, on your birth certificate. That can be particularly difficult if you're transgendered, and other issues such as the age of consent, for example.
And adoption there as well. Is that
Adoption,
state by state?
Adoption is state by state, and it's really problematic. If you're in WA, for example, there's no discrimination if you're in a same-sex couple. And recently there was a case in January where there was a step-parent adoption, which was a gay couple who'd gone through surrogacy in India. Queensland, forget it.
Okay. Well, I suppose that's what's important here is we know what the rules are for Queensland there, so we can't in Queensland, we can still access the surrogacy. That's great, and I wish we had a couple of hours to get questions out of you because we could really pick your brains. But what we need to pick your brains for next is our quick six.
Oh, lucky me.
Yes. So we're going to fire away six quick questions at you. You need to answer them very, very quickly. No thinking about your answers.
Uh-huh.
Are you ready?
Good luck, yeah.
Okay. Who is your favourite actor?
Laurence Olivier.
Good. Will and Grace or Modern Family?
Modern Family.
Excellent.
If you won the lottery, what would you do with the money?
Well, I'd probably keep working. I'd probably invest some money and go on a holiday, but I'd keep working because I enjoy my job.
That's excellent.
Help people.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. And what was the best advice your dad gave you?
Well, I'd rather not repeat that because it was rather defamatory.
Oh, no.
That'll do.
Okay. What are you, a cat or a dog person?
Either.
Either. And if you could trade places with one person for a week, who would it be?
Oh, I have no idea. Probably the Queen.
Okay.
The Queen. I love it. You don't have a lot of money anyway.
That's
And
right.
you have some really nice things. Lots of jewellery.
Except that she's a bit on the old side. That's the downside, yeah.
Good couple of hits.
Look, thanks
Yep.
very much. Would you be happy to join us for the next segment?
Yeah, sure.
Excellent. Well, Stephen is going to join us on the couch for our final segment for the night. So we will be back here after these very short breaks at QTV. Welcome back to QTV, and how short was that break? Now, there are lots of exciting upcoming events happening in and around town in Brisbane in the next couple of weeks. Sharon, can you tell us about one of them in particular that you went to? What was happening? What went down at CWC?
Look, I went to CWC, and for those that don't know, that's the Citizens Welfare Committee. And what they do each year, April and September, they actually have a a really awesome night. It was awesome.
An awesome night.
I
is
know
good.
I'm not getting
I like
excited
awesome
here, but it
nights.
was fantastic.
How awesome was it? What was there? What
There
happened?
was heaps of drag queens, and it's a fundraiser for Queensland Positive People, otherwise known as QPP.
Excellent.
And it was just great. There was drag queens from Sporties, from the Wickham, from the Beat, from Escape nightclub, that all come out of the
That's
woodwork.
a rare occasion.
There was like
Great.
30 different drag
Wow.
queens on. Such an awesome
Was
night.
there competitions on who was best dressed, or?
No, it's
No?
not a competitive
It was
night.
equality.
It's a
That's
show.
awesome.
It's just fully there to have an awesome, awesome night. They had raffle prizes, and there was heaps and heaps of people come along, which is just really, really good for the people in our community that need the support. So
great.
I'm saying we should all go in September during Pride Festival. I think it'll be a great thing.
Oh, a lot to do in September. That sounds great. I'm very excited. Now, Matthew, you would like to tell us about some of the upcoming events that are happening around town in Brisbane?
Sure. Yep. If you have nothing to do on Tuesday night, be sure to check out the Wickham Hotel's weekly event, Stay Calm and Karaoke. It's hosted by Paul J
That's
from
dangerous.
8 p.m. There are prizes, games, and moves like Jagger will await all attendees. There's also Balls Out Bingo night on Friday at the Sportsman's Hotel's Lounge Bar. You can win prizes to help fundraise for Healthy Communities LGBT Health and Wellbeing projects.
That is
So
the
they're
most,
very popular nights.
it's the most interesting night of bingo you will ever see. We were there on Friday night. I got to witness it firsthand. I don't want to give anything away. Have you been before, Stephen?
No, I haven't.
Okay, yeah, well, very, very interesting. But they have a very, very good ball boy who looks after the numbers for the host for the evening. Now, Sharon, what else is going on?
Well, the girls have got Zip Girls coming up on Friday the 10th, sorry, and they've also got Scarlet on the 11th. So that's a couple of events out there for the girls coming up. All of our details are available online. Check out Facebook for those.
Excellent. And speaking of Facebook and Scarlett, one of our viewers was on there and they heard what we said last week about Scarlett talking about possibly having men come to one of their events, and they wanted to know if that's going to happen. So Scarlett girls, the boys are interested in coming along for one night only to come and hang out and get to know you all. So let us know. Jump on Facebook and tell us when it's going to happen.
That's great. I love it when our viewers contact us and tell us what they're thinking, don't you?
Is wonderful. Makes me feel loved. Now, speaking of feeling loved, Equal Love has their first marriage equality rally for the year. And I think we are all going to be in attendance. Stephen, you might come along and join us.
I might be, yeah, I might be.
Yeah? Now, you've been to them before.
Yeah, I spoke at one last year.
Oh, fantastic. And how'd you like it?
Well, I put my big hat on, so I didn't get sunburnt. Yeah, it was a big hat, wasn't
It was
it?
bigger than mine.
No, it was a Bobcatter hat.
Oh, very enough. Did it have glitter?
No glitter. No
Okay.
glitter. No, but there were several thousand people there. The ABC described me as an activist, which was very kind of them, rather than a lawyer. Yeah, I've suddenly become an activist because I
Funny when
spoke
they start
up.
using that one. You go,
Yeah, I thought, oh,
They must
that's
have seen your
interesting.
boots.
It must be the boots, yeah, boots and the hat, yeah. But everyone was really happy. I think one of the things about going to a rally like that is that often when you deal with problems, you feel like you're alone, and suddenly when you're with other people and you feel supported, you gain real strength from it.
Yeah, it's an
Aside from
amazing
finding
day.
friends there and that kind of thing, but you find real strength from it.
And
Yeah.
I've heard so many people saying how great it is when their straight friends come along and support them as well. And the more people that come out to these rallies, the more the government's going to start to realise that they're making the wrong decision, or they're not making the right decision.
The first time I went, I think there were more straight friends of mine who I didn't know were going than there were gay ones, and I was terrified. I thought, oh, it's a rally, I'm not sure if I'll fit in, or this is something I'm into, but the mood totally grabs you, and it's a really uplifting experience.
Yeah, it's
positive.
Not this, it's not this scary political thing that people think it is. It's about love. It's about acceptance. There are families there. There are straight allies. It's fantastic. So make sure you come along and check this one out. And I'm going to make sure that I get the date right here. It is on May 18th, and it'll be at 1 p.m. at Queen's Park in the city, and it's just going to be fantastic. So there's a Facebook event up for it, so come and join the numbers on there as well. Now, Sharon, what's the last event you got for us?
Well, it's Queen's. It's the Queen's Ball.
Yes,
Brisbane
indeed.
Pride Festival are putting on the annual Queen's Birthday Ball Awards, and it's going to be on Sunday the 9th of June. Now, that is always on the long weekend for the Queen's birthday. So you can nominate now on the brisbanepridefestival.com.au website, and once nominations close, everybody will be able to go and vote. Each person gets one vote, so we'll try and keep this as fair as we can. Tickets are available to go to the Queen's Ball, so you can check that out on the website as well. And it's going to be an awesome night. It's going to be full of entertainment and...
Have you been to any before, Stephen?
No, I haven't.
All these years doing GLBTIQ
No, I
family law
haven't,
in
I'm
Brisbane,
not.
you haven't been. You have to come this year. You can come and be a guest on my table. We will drag you along. We will ply you with
dragged
alcohol.
along in what?
Dragged along.
Drag you along.
Sorry, it's an old joke. I understand.
Ply you with alcohol, put you in a pretty frock, get you in there. It'll be a very, very great night. So there's lots of entertainment and lots of awards. So you can still nominate. I think you should nominate Balloonicorn, but that's another story.
You could hashtag Balloonicorn.
You
on
can
your Twitter.
hashtag Balloonicorn. He should get his own Twitter account.
I think it's a they. I think we have a they. It's not picking a side.
Gender non-specific.
Gender non-specific's fine.
Well, hashtag Balloonicorn or tweet any one of the three of us. Stephen, are you on Twitter too?
Absolutely.
You can tweet Stephen as well. His Twitter handle will be appearing here. We will have no more content for you tonight because we have to wrap up the show. But thank you very, very much for joining us and tuning in again. And a big special thanks to Stephen Page from Harrington Family Law. We will see you next week. I'm Michael James.
I'm Sharon Mulheron.
I'm Matthew Bowe, and this is Balloonicorn.
See you next week.
See yous.
Advance to the absolute peak of human perfection.